So let's jump into the power moment. So today we're jumping into the last of the 4 models. So I've been able to now jump through with you guys the economic model, the lead gen model. Now, no, it's coming. Budget model, thank you. Budget model, and now it's going to be the organization model. All of these models are for you to build as big of a business as you want, right? So when we're going through this and what it looks like and what's attached to it, I want you to think, okay, not, hey, this is all that can happen. I want you to the whole time be like, okay, few questions. Where do I want to take this? And what's next? Right? A lot of times, when you're going through and building out a plan, you need to be building that 6-lane highway, because then as St. George keeps on growing and we don't have enough space to go out, then we run into different issues, right? So same thing with your business. How are you thinking big to build it in the right spot? And then go to the next small step of what's next. So we're going to be going into that. So to kind of dive in, first off, I like this quote in the MRE. It says, talent to shine, systems to define, and train and consult to refine. So when we're going in, there's the 3 L's. We've talked about this multiple times. It's come up in the models quite often because you have leads, listings, and then leverage, right? If you have you need to make sure that you're having lots of leads. That's why it's at the bottom. If you don't have leads and you're not getting things going and having those conversations, then you don't have anything to build on top of. Listings are very much that catalyst that helps you to get the business done and move things forward. Leverage is what you need in order to be sane. That's why these go together, right? So leads, listings, and leverage. So leverage is the one that we're focusing on with the org chart. Because when you're looking at it, you now have a business, you're going through, right? You're getting things going, you have the leads coming in. What does it look like to get to the next step? So when you're looking at leverage, and I want to always boil it into a few spots, right? We're going to jump into what the whole organization chart is, but this is kind of, okay, A, who is going to do it? 2, how will they do it? And then 3, what will they do with it? And this component is a lot of different aspects. I think in the age that we're going into with AI, I think a lot of leverage can be done through AI, right? But it's very much the answer is people, systems, and tools. And that's where the tech aspect comes in. So how are you utilizing at the best of your ability that to have the best business you can? So here's the 3 models that it talks about for the org charts. The first one is, and this is huge. I have all the people all the time. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, right? All the time, people will come and say, hey, I want this next step. And they're not at the spot when doing all that you can do, hire admin help, right? So when I started out my career, I was an elementary school teacher. I had it where I was doing this part-time, and I started closing deals, right? Coming in every day, working, closing deals, and just kind of going through that process. I then, every single summer, I didn't teach, right? I would come into the office, and I got to meet a whole bunch of cool friends who liked me, and they saw what I was doing, and it was fun to run side by side. And by the end of one of the summers, even though I was still teaching the next year, I had 3 of them come up to me and say, hey, are you going to make a team? We want to be on your team. And I was like, woo, let's do it. So I made a team, right? I was not doing all that I could do. I was doing fine. I was doing, I was closing deals, doing that, right? But I laugh now looking back because when you go through this org chart, you'll see some of my flaws that I learned from of hiring first off the bat just a whole bunch of agents to do things with me, right? You'll see the process and why it's built this way. But the very first thing is when doing all that you can do, hire administrative help first, right? So in here, I always like to this is one of the charts in there. It says the pros and cons of hiring a licensed assistant. The first pro, is assistants allow you to focus on lead generation by having the business knowledge, experience, and ability to do other tasks. Another pro is an assistant has already made a career decision to be in real estate, right? Next one is assistant understands the commission business. So they get that a little bit more, and assistant is already trained in the business. So having someone who's already licensed could be the right move. The cons is they're most likely going to cost more because now they know that next step and have that next level. And two, assistant tends to bring his own clients and wants to work with them, and that can get messy. We were. So that's this next step, right? So I always like to see kind of like what kind of admin options like are available and out there that you guys can think of. Like if you're like, hey, I need more help, what could you go to? Transaction coordinator, that's a great example, right? It's an easy one. They have a specific role. You hire them for something, right? What else? Yeah, good, right. There's different places that you can say, hey, great. Like you can section off a lot of this, or you can say, hey, great, I'm hiring a full-time assistant who's doing it all, right? That's kind of why I wanted to, so I appreciate those answers, Kelly. I'm like, it helps because it's like, okay, what is your need at that time and what is your capacity for the next step, right? Kind of going in that spot. So the number 2 and the next step was hire talent. I like these ones because talent is really an interesting word of how it's used. So this first one right here says, you'll know how do you know you'll have hired talent? 1, talent pushes to get answers. And the opposite of that is non-talent will have to be pushed to want answers. Are they coming to you? Are they going out there and finding stuff? Are they going and getting that, asking their AI for an answer first, right? Or are they first off just waiting for something to happen, right? The next thing of talent is talent shares your goals and fulfills your needs as a natural byproduct of fulfilling their own. So are they someone who can fit inside of your ecosystem and see that they have more potential to grow and are excited about growing everything, right? That growth mindset. Non-talent doesn't fulfill your needs and ends up giving you back pieces of its job. Right? So important, right? You want someone who wants to keep on going through that process, right? Next thing of talent knows what it wants or it is actively searching to know. Non-talent doesn't know what it wants and isn't searching. Right? Right? Tell me what to do, right? Talent pushes you consistently. Non-talent requires you to push it. Talent is continually raising the bar and wants to be associated with talent. Non-talent may not know where the existing bar is even set, or even what bar you're talking about. Make sense? So I like this one because when you're thinking about it, you're saying, okay, who am I hiring? What pieces am I getting off? How do I want to have that done for me in this whole model? You want to be thinking, okay, am I hiring talent? Or is this going to be someone how I'm going to be getting my job back? And this is kind of where it really boils down. One is the cost of a bad hire, right? Yeah, 3 to 4 months of interview, right? 3 to 4 months of training and discovering it's not working out. 3 to 4 months to put on probation before terminating the relationship. 9 to 12 months of time and money, and you get to start all over, right? And you come out of it very frustrated. Yeah, no one in this room has ever done that. No one. No one. The opportunity of a great hire, right? Make sure it's there. I like to put the salt on your wounds for that. The opportunity of a great hire. Okay, 3 to 4 months to hire an interview. 3 to 4 months to train and evaluate if it's working. They're performing, so you get free to focus on your priorities, focus on mastery, focus on opportunities, focus on your free time. Right? 6 to 8 months of time and money, and you gain personal and professional growth, right? You leave that excited and energized for what's next. So this is kind of where, and when you're going through and when you're training and consulting is the next part. So you've now gone through, you go through the process. We have some great resources at Keller Williams of teaching you how to go through and hire people and what that process is. And a lot of it still, even if you have the process dialed in, like it's never a once and done, I learned it, right? It's an improving process to kind of get there. But this is that next step. But now that you have someone, what does it look like to train and consult? This is actually the way that most agents do it. So they hire someone, they say, follow me around and do this, and they meet on the fly. Right? And this is how it should be done. So you train them, and that might be doing some, hey, like, see what I'm doing, right? But for knowledge and skills, you have them take action, and then you consult for accountability. And you can see either A, when you're consulting, you're asking questions and it's going all the way back to needing to give them more training and helping them in that next spot, or they need to go back and take some more action, depending on where it's at in that conversation, what they've done. So that's kind of the process, right? You got to recruit, train, consult to keep them in that way. So here's kind of the 3 key areas of a millionaire business. And this is what I wanted to go into next from this. But you have a few things. One, you have marketing and administrative help, who also move you to the 7th level, right? Depending on when. You have a lead buyer specialist and you have a listing specialist is what you'll see in this model. The one thing I want you to look at when we're going through this model is you can adapt it in so many ways. Like I have seen so many different options of how you do this, and it depends all on your end goal. This right here is what Gary Keller shows and goes through, hey, after compiling teams after teams after teams, what does it look like to make the most profitable team, right? And also a little side note, Gary Keller would also say that when I was going to some classes, he was talking about levels 1 through 4 can be your most profitable spots. So even though I'm showing you through 1 through 7, it really doesn't say, hey, how do you get to number 7? That's not this conversation. The conversation is, where do you want to go and how do we help you get there to build it correctly? Make sense? So level 1, a lot of people are at this step. This right here, it is you, right? This is where you are the show. It basically, right, you do the lead generation, you capture and convert, do the conversion of appointments. You do the presentations to get the listings, right? You show buyers and market sellers. You write and negotiate contracts. You coordinate sales to closing. You are managing the money, right? And you also have to work on your mindset and vision because you always got to be continuing to grow and focus on yourself, right? So this right here is that first step. The first step here is, like we said at the very beginning, you need to do everything that you can be doing. And then you say, hey, great, what is next for me and having that? Level 2 is a buyer's agent. No, I'm kidding. Right? That's what I hired a whole bunch of agents to run alongside me, and it was fun, but not the most economic way to run a business. It's almost more distracting than it is helpful. So what you'll see is areas of mastery. This is the next step that you have to master is, okay, your first hire. And you have to train them and master that skill. And you have to keep them accountable and master that skill. It's a skill, and this is where it's like you're continuing to build yourself up to become the best version of you that you can so that everyone else has a better and bigger opportunity, right? So that's the next step. This admin can look like a lot of different things. This could be you hired a full-time admin, and that's what you do. It could be a mixture of this next one, level 3, of having it where these are some of the pieces that the one person was doing, but now it's split into more, right? So it could be that you hired a TC or that you leveraged out this, right? There's a lot of things in that step of saying, hey, great, as a level 2, you are now relying on those other people to help you build to that next level and still have to work on these skills. And I always say that because like the higher training and accountable is still a skill that you're going to have to learn and get better at and improve at when you're doing that. The next one is level 3. So level 3, these are the areas you have to master. You have to do and get even better at systems, right? So systems and by thinking big and building it so that you can help orchestrate and put things in the right spot are going to make it so that everyone does their job better. Rachel? Not Rachel. Rebecca? Sorry. Yeah.
You don't have to build your system and then as you go to the next level, build your system again, and then as you go to the next level, build your system again. So they say, start big, build your system as if you're already the millionaire real estate agent. That way, you're not revamping those systems all the time. It's a system that you can cater to and grow into.
100%.
We've got to run our system, now we need to revamp the whole thing. So when you're doing your system, treat it as the millionaire real estate agent system. You're already earning and receiving and gifting $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
And that system will sustain you through your career rather than, okay, we have an admin, now I need to redo my systems, now because we have a transaction.
100%.
Now we need to redo the systems because we have a buyer's agent. Now we need to redo the systems because we have a listing agent. So do it as big as possible. And sometimes that's hard to think big. So there's lots of people here in the industry. There's that big red book that tells you what to do. The systems are there. You just have to tweak it a little bit to make it caterized to yourself. But do it big.
Yeah.
Go big or go home. You don't end up retiring and working it forever.
Totally. Right? So yeah, so think big. Thank you, Rebecca. Right? So thinking big, building those systems out and building them the way that you want it to be when it is as big as you want it. Right? So good. Next one is succeeding through others. Getting really good at actually working and like being with other people. That's a skill, right? Having it where a lot of us are perfectionists and we want like take everything back because we want it done in a certain way. How do we help though work through and succeed through other people and knowing that, you know, you've also hired someone who can elevate that when given that ability, right? And then continue going, you know, too deep. So having it so that you're now not just one admin support, you're 2 admin support before you get to the next level of saying, hey, what does that look like, right? So level 4, and you can see it's like part 1 and part 2. This is where it starts getting a little bit more of, okay, what's next, right? This could be part 1 where you have a showing assistant. And that could be your next step of having it where you're hiring someone who's going out and helping leverage that time and that one piece, right? Could be that you have someone who is literally just taking care of your leads. So you're going out and doing other things, but you pay them to manage your leads, right? It could be this way where it's saying, hey, great, maybe instead of a showing assistant, you get another agent. I see a lot of the times on teams that it's not a lead buyer agent, but it's just a lead agent and someone who does buyers and sellers, right? None of this is, so this isn't like, hey, do it 100% this way, but the reason why I like showing this is because it shows the model for you to base and say, hey, this is a way to do it that has been proven. How am I wanting to do it and what are the pros and cons about that, right? But level, like I said, 1 through 4 is where you can get not only the most amount of money, but you can also then have it where, like profitability wise, right? But you can also then start building that lifestyle that you want. Most people, most agents, when they're saying, hey, great, they want to build something, are probably wanting to be on levels 1 through 4, and that's the right spot for them, right? So where do you want to build and what kind of lifestyle do you want? Level 5, this is where now you're starting to add on and get even more going where, again, it's just more and more things to manage, right? But it's getting closer. The whole purpose of this is you're getting closer to, at level 5 is where you're giving up listings in that mindset. Level 6 is where you're starting to now have it where you have your board of directors basically who are managing things and getting it where you can then get ready for that final step, which is level 7 of basically replacing yourself, right? Having someone who is now doing all of those things so that you are out of the business, and that's why it's called a level 7 business. But like I said, I'm focusing on with you guys 1, 2, 3, and 4 of how do we start building that business that you're looking for to help you get there. Make sense? So the last slide that I have on here really is, like I said at the beginning, where do you want to go and what would be your next step? And I like bringing that up because really, I mean, it's okay, how are we going from point A to point B, right? What is our 5-year vision? What are you looking at and what do you want to build? So you can start mastering those skills that you need today to be working on to saying, hey, great, let's get to the next step and the next step from there. But I kind of want to open up for questions and answers and kind of jump into that for the last little bit. And I mean, that is all the slides that I have on here. So wanted to dive in and see where else I can help you guys out on that. Yeah. Ooh, showing assistant. Good question. So there's a handful of ways that I've seen it done. So I used to do this. So it was great. I hired a showing assistant. Yep. So for about 3 years of my career, I don't know how many houses I actually walked into. It wasn't very many. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. A good showing partner, the way I did it, and then I'll tell you the other options, right? The way I did it, I paid them a $2,000 salary plus a 10% bonus on every single buy deal. So they got a commission from the brokerage as a referral, as well as I paid him $2,000 because then I can, if I'm paying him a salary, then I can mandate some form of hours. So I did that for a few reasons, and it worked out really well. I only had 2 during that time, but so one was about a year, and the other one was about a year and a half for that almost 3 years. And it worked. Oh, actually, no, I had a third one, and it was my brother. And he did great, but that was different. But ultimately, how that worked was I gave them hours that they were required to work. They already knew, and I created the system around exactly what the people were looking for. In my appointment, I always went through and showed that process and explained, hey, you're gonna be working with my team. I have my transaction coordinator. I have my showing partner who will be opening up the doors, you know, da, 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 da. So what we're gonna do next is I'm gonna put you on this group text message first off with so-and-so, right? My showing partner. And then we had a whole system around them every single day going and searching all the MLSs to say, hey, are there any houses that would fit them now from these questions back and forth? And then I would have them text it in the group thread. They would then text it in the group thread, and then that was a great way because when ones came up, they would all communicate and get it scheduled. And then the whole time I'm seeing it, I don't even have to chime in 90% of the time, right? But I'm seeing what's going on. I see that they went to a house, that we had the protocol that my showing partner would call me right after all the showings and give me the rundown. And then I would call him up and say, hey, you know, I know he was asking this question. He asked on your scale from 1 to 10. This one stood out. I'm super excited for you guys. Like, let's go through. I told you when we met up, these are the next steps. And then I would go write up the offer and get that done. But I had it where that was the process. So I had it where all showings were scheduled, found, and done in that way, in that order. And it was a great job for a lot of people because they enjoyed not only having those couple hours a day that they were working, that they had to go and just that was their time to search, but then they had their flexibility with that. So yeah, so that was one way of doing it.
Can't pay them $2,000 a month for a license.
Why can't you?
You're hiring them as your kind of assistant, a licensed agent. I didn't think you'd pay a licensed agent get a salary.
I pay Scott a salary, and he hates it. He doesn't like the money. No, yeah, you're totally fine. You can't pay a commission. That's why I did referrals every single time to pay them the bonuses. you can't be splitting up your commissions after the fact because all commissions go through the broker first. So that's where I paid a salary because I had mandated work that I was saying, hey, I want you to be working doing this. Then I paid a commission because just like all of us in this room, we like to be able to build as big a business as we want. So I wanted to give that opportunity that they could go out and help me get the deals done quicker. So that was one method that I did because I required some time. Yeah. No.
I could not pay a salary to somebody with a license. And supposedly the workaround was I could pay the brokerage and the brokerage could pay them.
Yeah.
Well, that's like a big deal. Yeah.
So
They
maybe
made
the broker
it-
wanted to cut of that or something, I don't know.
They made a big deal of it, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't need to worry that.
No.
There's nothing on your real estate license that says you can't work for a salary, I mean.
Yeah.
I worked for a salary for 5 years.
That's true. Yeah, you worked with yeah, because you were the ISA model, which is a salary plus bonuses as well. So there's so many different ways to cut this up, right? I still, with my people up north, I have 1 or 2 people that I work with who they know that we just have that deal where I pay them a 10% referral, and I still look for the houses because I haven't leveraged that piece off as much, but they help me with all the houses and they show them for those clients. I've built that relationship, right? But they also are happy because they just, that's my relationship with them, and we've done business for years, right? So there's a bunch of different ways that you could do this. And that's ultimately where it's saying, hey, what is that next step? And you don't do that though until you're too busy, right? Like, make sure that you're doing those things in the right step, unless it's something that you're just know that would help protect you. Like, I think a transaction coordinator of some sort is a good option for everyone, because a transaction coordinator will help you double check a few things and be that extra support in that way to free up your time. But make sure that you're doing that in the right way. Yeah.
I know this question is floating out there.
Yeah.
On your showing us, agents that you.
Yep.
Show you properties, could they go out and find their own clients and do their own business, or how did that work for you?
Good question. I did it in a couple different ways. When I was paying them a salary, I didn't allow them to. I gave them an additional 25% so they would get 35% if it was a buy side, because they're also doing the showings, where I gave them only the 25 and I took care of the listing, but then they got that referral. But that was my agreement, because I'm like, I'm paying you a salary every single month. Like, like that's just how it works. When it's someone who if I'm literally just saying, hey, I just need help with showings, and I was able to work out that deal, then yes, they're their own agent. It wasn't an official, like, hey, you are part of my team in that way. It was a relationship of leverage. Does that make sense? But yeah, so that was my agreement with them was, if it's like, we're still doing all the same spots, I'm still writing up the contracts, we're still doing this, and that's how I worked it out. And it works great, because like they enjoyed what they do, but they were happy to have outside conversations, and getting a 35% instead of a 10 was a great bonus for them. So, yeah.
This question from Karen Anderson.
Okay.
Most agents really struggle getting past their first consistent hurdle. What 3 actions should a busy agent take in preparation to win with their first hire?
Ooh, I love it. Okay, so just to repeat that. So it's most agents have a hard time getting past their first.
Yeah.
Right? Getting from whatever that first one is to the second one. Really, the big thing with this, and like the 3 things, right? She asked for 3 things to help you get there.
It sounds like the hurdle is getting their first assistant.
Getting their first assistant.
What are 3 actions that the agent can take to win with their first hire?
I love it. So to win with your first hire, you need to make sure that you understand what you're wanting to leverage out. Because I do think that like the whole like, okay, doing a TC or doing a marketing assistant, like there's a lot of different ways that you can break that down smaller, which isn't a bad option depending on what you're looking for. If you're wanting to jump to that part where you're having like a full-time assistant, then a lot of the times that you just need enough business. You need enough business to justify having that going. So like you need to get to that point where you're doing all the lead generation that you can, and then making sure, because that's the one thing that you don't hand off. You don't hand off your 3 hours of lead generation to someone else until way down that road. You can't do, yeah, unless they're licensed as well, right? At the same time, you just like that was my mistake. I mean, I loved the 3 friends who joined me, and we had a blast for a couple of years, right? At the same time, I basically was giving up more of my time to focus on lead generation to help them lead generate, and that's just a different task, right? So how can I instead focus on how can you have someone who helps you with the 80% so you can focus on your 20%, right? So the 3 things would be, hey, have you done all that you can on your 20%? And then what 80% would you want to hire out first? Is that a full-time employee? Or is that you even chunking that into a few pieces and saying, hey, let's get that. Rebecca? Job description. Yep.
What it is they're hiring for.
100%.
That would give them a glimpse of what they are going to be doing, and then you could maybe expand from there.
Yeah. So having it so that you have that job description, so you know exactly what you're actually handing off as well is important. But that doesn't answer it perfectly. But that should help you kind of get to that right spot. And that's where a lot of times it really is like, okay, when you're doing all that you can, right? Hire admin help. What does that look like? What's that next step? That's one huge benefit about being on a team. You already now jump in immediately having all the admin help, right? Like having it so that you have all of that, and having that where you're already on a team and that's just taken care of is huge. But if depending on what you're wanting to build and where you want to go, that's the conversation of, hey, what's next? Good question. Thanks, Karen. Other ones?
So you said this is how you did it at first. How did you do it the next time better?
Well, that was actually my favorite. That was my favorite, but that's also when I was the busiest, right? When I was closing and having 8 closings a month and kind of just running around like crazy on different ones, that was the most fun for me because I mean, some of those years I was like, I didn't even see houses that I sold, right? The same time I was buying flips and I had an employee that bought them for me and I didn't ever see them, right? Like, so like it was different source of leverage of saying, hey, what am I building? But that was my favorite by far. Now I don't have that because like my focus, right? What you focus on expands. My personal focus isn't on having as many buyers, and I'm more focused on helping agents out. So I don't have that same. So I do a lot of that showing partner relationship of just being like, hey, great, leveraging out that spot.
Jen, you can do it without having not paying for salary for college. You could just have someone as your showing.
Correct.
And then just do all the showing, but just have a conversation in the contract. You guys, okay, you do this, and this is what you receive. And
Yep.
so when you do it without having to pay a salary, it's not a little bit.
I'll be your showing assistant for 20%. That was gonna be my question is,
Yeah.
what are people paying for a showing assistant? So if you call somebody up and say, hey, will you show this house for me?
Yeah.
Is there a consensus on what
That's
that?
different.
I
Don't
know.
build this house for me.
Yeah. Totally.
Right. So if you have a showing assistant, is there a certain price per house that you pay, or?
I've seen it range. Where it's like, hey, if you're showing one house, it's like, hey, great. Like sometimes it's just you have that relationship with that one person, you're out and about, right? Sometimes it's no, hey, here's a, $30, $50, right, per door. Sometimes it's, hey, no, like I know that I need help in this area and I'm not going to be showing the houses. Like I'm going to be working, finding and doing all this, but it's, 10%. Or, hey, no, I need some, like, that's where all of it's very, like, it's not cut and dry.
You know, you have somebody who wants to see a house and you pull an agent that you're gonna.
Totally.
They, you know, when you do it for them. then we-
Totally.
Yeah.
Right?
$50.
Yeah, I think it's a lot.
It's a,
Again, we were told it wasn't. We just pretend like we didn't do it. but I think that, I don't know, it's like I do it, and, like.
Yeah, just
Because.
we would
Yeah.
like pay them for the day.
Well, you paid him for an activity. That's a difference. It's different than a commission because yeah. Yeah. I love it. No, good question. So, and that's why, like, so this process of saying, hey, great, what does this look like? There's really no standardization. I did have, and I've been thinking about, because up north, that some people were loving and wanting me to create like a Notion page that shows options that we would all be willing to help people out with, and spell it out. Hey, refer it to us. Hey, do this. Hey, do this. Like, what are those options looking like? And it's been on my list of items to do. I have not gotten to it. Small. I probably could, but I have to do the mindset stuff first of what it looks like. But like, because then that would be something you could say, hey, great, if someone reaches out, you can say, hey, this is actually pretty often what we do. Like, I'm happy to work with you in what way, what do you think? Right? And I've coached a lot of you through that, even getting a lead from up north or whatever. But it's the same relationship in the office of, hey, how do we help each other in that? So we kind of have gotten very much on the showing side, right? But that's where all of these are different pieces of your org chart. What does it look like? Where do you want to go? What is next? What's the system around it? So you can build that as big as you want. Make sense? Well, I love it. Any other questions? It's time, but yeah.
I guess when you are building out a team and you're not personally doing the showings and personally doing, all the pieces, how do you keep the experience for the buyer smooth or,
I love it.
how do you do that?
Good question. So ultimately what it's really going to be to keep that experience good is set up expectations in the first place. Because really, when do people become unhappy? It's when expectations aren't set, or their expectations in their head weren't what happened. Correct. If you
Great handoff, and this is true for the ISA world too, right?
100%.
The handoff to the listing agent or the handoff to the showing assistant is the key. If you do that poorly, the whole thing will just be clunky.
100%. So it's setting up the expectation and having the handoff go smooth, having the systems and what you want to have it look like already done before. And that's where I noticed that it was great. Like, I would have people all the time joking that they enjoyed my showing assistant more than me. And I would be like, well, they are better looking. So, but it was just that fun part of getting it done. But they always appreciated the fact that I was there making things happen. Right. So it really is. It's what are you setting up the expectations when you're having that meeting to get the buyer or listing, right? And how are you doing those next steps to actually continue to follow through? So it's similar, but you have more of a party that you're moving in that direction. So you just have to make sure that you're on top of it in that way. Great question. Okay, sounds like food's out there. So appreciate everyone for coming. Hopefully you took away something. Again, these two questions: where do you want to go? And what would be your next step? And how do we help you get there? So you guys are awesome. See ya.